What a story. Not every horror is a creation of the mind.
Hello, welcome to Premier Scene. I'm Bueno as we attend Film 4's FrightFest, and it gets off to an amazing start, as you can see, with all the hordes of people behind us. Join us as we attend the European premiere of the Theatre Bazaar.
I'm very excited to be having the European premiere of the film here at FrightFest. You know, I've known about FrightFest for years, but I've never attended.
And what brought you becoming involved in this film?
I actually have a company called Severin Films which releases older horror movies on DVD, and I was editing a featurette on the movie Aria for another company, and I just thought this would be so much better as a horror movie, and we were getting into production at the time, and so I called some friends of mine who I'd met on the festival circuit or whose films that we'd restored, and said, would you be interested in doing an anthology movie, part of an anthology movie, and thankfully most people were receptive to the idea.
And the whole premise of Theatre Bazaar, I mean, it's just an ideal opportunity for directors and creative peoples for their imaginations to go completely wild.
Yeah, I think so, and that was one of the things that attracted the filmmakers to it, was the fact that that was it. You can do whatever you want in this film. You have complete creative freedom to come up with a story that you want to tell and make it the way that you want to make it, within a certain time restriction, same budgetary restrictions, and the fact that it would ultimately play in this theatre that would form the wraparound story of the entire feature. Other than that, whatever you want.
What did you take from my baby?
Does horror lean itself to creativity more so, or maybe science fiction as well, but allow yourself to really let your mind run loose?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's more than any other genre, but certainly when you talk about creative freedom and freedom of expression in movies, certainly that's something that often gets restricted in horror, because there are certain things like ratings to consider, and this market won't take something if it's too extreme and that kind of stuff. But the interesting thing is that most independent horror filmmakers made their name doing something that really, you know, hit a nerve with people or really kind of resonated. So it seems strange to me that those people wouldn't be given the opportunity to just kind of run wild with their imagination, rather than be told this is what you can't do. You know, we've got this filmmaker, but we've got him on a leash. You know, so what's the point? You need to let those filmmakers go, do what they want, because then they'll come back with something really interesting.
Did you come back being really surprised by what's been brought to the table?
I was absolutely delighted by what's been brought to the table, not only because of the ideas and the whole wealth of I mean, it just speaks to how horror is different to certain people. I mean, all these people are kind of associated with the horror genre in some way or another, but it just shows you what a wide variety of things there are in the world of horror. But beyond that, you know, just the amount of production value and just how big these movies look compared to, you know, the reality of what the resources that they had to work with. But again, it was that situation where they're like, okay, well, I've been given this opportunity to really kind of put myself on the screen and something that I want to put on screen. I want to get the best collaborators around me, the people that I really trust, you know, the crew and the cast that I really want, who you know, and we all trust each other, and we're just going to do the best we can in this situation.
You must be very mindful as well that you're choosing a team of people whose egos aren't really going to get in the way, and not try to kind of one-upmanship themselves. Was it easy or difficult to get everybody to just work and gel together?
It was actually quite easy to get people to work and gel together, because there was a certain amount of collaboration in as much as we did share our scripts with each other before we went to shoot, and talked about each other's ideas and maybe what we thought wasn't working and that kind of stuff. But it was never in an antagonistic way, because ultimately the filmmakers still had the final decision. They could take notes without it having to immediately be on the defensive, which is usually the way when you're in a situation with producers and they're like, yeah, that's got to go, and I don't like that, you know, and you need to put this person in the film and that kind of stuff. There was none of that. So it actually made it a very kind of nurturing environment where everybody was talking about that, talking about their ideas, but also we collaborated on, you know, the order of the films, that kind of thing, and whether we would put the title of the film at the beginning of each film, that kind of stuff. So everybody was involved at every step of the way.
Welcome to the UK.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be in the UK.
So we're an exciting project to be a part of.
Yeah, well, Theatre Bazaar is really a great opportunity for a lot of directors who are actually friends to get together and work on a picture together. I mean, it's one of those rare opportunities today when, directors are kind of iconoclastic directors doing unusual genre films are given sort of final cut and given carte blanche to do basically whatever they wanted to come up with, even within the context of, it's a Grand Guignol themed anthology film. However, we all kind of played with that, and certainly Douglas Buck really played with the concept of what a Grand Guignol film could be within there. And, a lot of us worked on each other's films. I'm a director of photography also, and I shot 3 of the episodes. I shot Richard Stanley's, Douglas Buck's, and my own Vision Stains, the one that I directed. And Douglas Buck edited 4 of the episodes. So a lot of us, we worked together and we all communicated during the production of the film and spoke to each other, so it wasn't one person in their corner and just doing their thing. And David Gregory, the overall producer of the film and also director of Suites, really fostered a sort of spirit of communication. So, when you're much more free artistically, you tend to talk more and not have, the man on your back.
I was going to say, you talked about being free artistically. Does horror give you the freedom like maybe other films don't give you?
Well, I think the genre is a sort of open season for the imagination. So what's really great about doing a genre film is a lot of the laws of reality and a lot of the sort of stringent rules of narrative filmmaking don't necessarily have to, be considered, or you can take them and embellish them into another world. Even though a lot of the films here are very reality-based genre films, even though there's elements of fantasy kind of chucked inside. Actually, ultimately, it's a movie that's very based in reality, that a lot of the episodes have ended up being about troublesome relationships. And one of the things that's kind of an unusual character mark in this picture compared to a lot of recent genre films, it all features very strong female characters. Every single episode is about a strong female character. So I think we all wanted to, even though there's only male directors on the film, we wanted to make a sort of nasty subversive genre film that the ladies can enjoy too.
And as a cinematographer, were you given any direction with the look and feel that was required throughout the film?
No, every single episode in the Theatre Bazaar has a very, very distinct visual look. I mean, there was a few different, cinematographers involved. I shot 3 of them. In my 3 episodes, you wouldn't tell that it's the same person who did them. Richard Stanley's Mother of Toads is a very fantastical, almost Italian horror movie kind of vibe. Douglas Buck's The Accident is a much more realistic, kind of lyrical, yet very much in a real world kind of episode. And Vision Stains is a very gritty, almost New York in the 1980s kind of vibe, and it's all handheld. Considering a lot of the other episodes were done in a slightly more classical way, because we were talking to each other as we were making the films. I certainly consulted with everybody and wanted to have an episode that had a very different visual look and feel.
How did you get involved in the project? How did it come into fruition?
Well, a year ago I got a call from Evan Hussain, who worked for David's company, 7 Films, and just asked if I would be interested in taking part in this anthology. And he told me who the other filmmakers were. And I thought about it for about a second and then said yes. Really, the truth is, it was a chance. The whole deal was that everybody got a very small amount of money, the same amount of money, but we could make whatever we wanted. There was no censorship, there was no distributor, there was no production company to tell you what to shoot or what not to shoot. So it was really the chance to do something completely, purely creative. And I jumped at that chance.
It does allow the imagination to go really wild with a title, The Theatre Bazaar, doesn't it really?
Yeah, like I said, there was no control on what we could do. Whatever we could think of, as horrible as it could be, we could shoot. And that happens never. You never get that chance.
Even in this day and age where you would think that, maybe back in the sort of 70s, etc., there would be far more sort of censorship. You think of us all being far more liberally minded, don't you, these days?
It's the opposite. We had more freedom in the 70s. If you look at the horror films in the 70s, they were much harder. Because it wasn't just about blood and violence back then, it was about ideas. And the ideas were violent, and the ideas were brutal, and the ideas were really twisted. And today, we have, much more graphic violence, but the ideas are very simple. And, it's basically more for entertainment now. And I think back then, horror films could be more Renegade. And I think Theatre Bazaar is more of a Renegade throwback film.
And at the heart of this, there must be a good story, or in this case, several different, great stories to tell, and that's the heart of filmmaking, isn't it?
That's what it's all about. I mean, if you don't care about the characters, then all the effects and all the money and all the CGI doesn't mean anything.
I can give you all that other women give.
and more.
How does that affect you as an artist? Is it cathartic, or do you wish you hadn't have visited there after all?
No, it's absolutely 100% cathartic. You're 100% right when you say that. All my films, it's a catharsis. Once it's out of my system, people meet me, they say, well, they look at my wife with fear. They think this poor woman, she's not going to live throughout the week. But it's out of your system. It's a release. And when I was a kid growing up, that's what horror films were for me too. I wanted to see everything I wasn't allowed to see because it was a release. And I think that's the thrill. George Romero, I saw him give an interview once. He said the greatest thing, he said, people always ask him, what is it about horror films? And he said, it's the roller coaster. Some people love the roller coaster, some people don't. How do you explain that? And I thought that's such a great analogy, because if you love horror films, you can't explain to somebody who doesn't love them why you do, because they don't get it. It's the roller coaster.
And a lot of many experienced actors always say that they always bring a bit of themselves to the part. Does the director bring a part of himself to the films that he creates as well?
They do. It's funny, when you make a film, if you try to think about style on the film, if you try to think about art, you're not going to make it ever. You have to just tell your story, and then what happens is, as a filmmaker, you look at 2-3 films that you've made, and then you see there's a certain signature and there's a certain fingerprint. And I think it comes out of your soul as an artist, because I think if you try to put that there, it becomes fake and it's not authentic anymore. So I think there's always a part of every filmmaker, every good filmmaker in his films. Max Tofuz once said, every filmmaker makes the same film over and over. And if you look at the large body of work of many filmmakers, it's true.